A few months ago, I reviewed the Samsung Odyssey G7. It performed so well, especially for a VA panel, that I wanted to keep it. But with the bad backlight bleed, the lack of a software-controlled OSD, and lack of color vibrance, I just couldn't. Which brings me on to this, the Alienware AW2721D, which is Dell's answer to the 1440p 240Hz base for $1,100. Now, I would compare this to the Samsung Odyssey G7, but I lost all my files for that video, plus that wasn't the absolute best when it came to gaming performance, so instead I'll be making a lot of comparisons between this, the BenQ Zowie XL2546K, and the 360Hz Alienware AW2521H, which if you want to watch my review on that monitor, click on the pop-out banner over here. I think I'm pointing at the right spot. Now, before we get started, I just want to say thank you to Dell for lending me this monitor to review. As always, they get no say or early preview on how I would want to present a product. By the way, Dell person that reached out to me, you don't need this back, do you? I mean, come on, you don't need this back. Okay, anyways, let's start with the small stuff and work our way up. The AW2721D has a 27-inch 1440p 240Hz NanoIPS panel, has VESA's Display HDR 600 certification, and includes the Mac Daddy of G-Sync, G-Sync Ultimate. The design is very much the same of other recent Alienwares, but with some additions. You have the same legs that spread out wide, taking up a lot of desk space, just like your mom. The legs are sculpted into the design of the beautiful stand, which includes a wire routing hole and an outlining RGB strip. The stand flows into the design of the back of the monitor and also includes the RGB Alienware logo. While we're on the back, it includes 100x100 VESA mounting support, and for I/O, or input-output, has two HDMI 2.0 ports, one DisplayPort 1.4 port, a headphone jack, and a single USB upstream port to power the four USB Type-A ports, which are all 5 gigabits per second. I'd say USB 3.2 Gen 1 instead of 5 gigabit, but no one would understand what the hell I'm talking about because it's stupid, just like the USB Implementers Forum for thinking changing it was a good idea, because the previous naming scheme made much more sense. Yes, I'm still mad about that because I still don't understand his dumbass naming scheme. Salt aside, the monitor itself has extremely thin bezels and one of the thinnest chins I've seen on any monitor, making it look extremely modern. I have no doubt that it'll look great even 5 years from now. A couple of new design touches are the Alienware logo on the front of the stand, making this monitor stand out from other Alienware monitors. There's also a new RGB strip under the chin which can be turned on and off simply by tapping on the chin in front of the light. Lastly, it includes tilt, height, swivel, and pivot adjustments on both sides, making this monitor extremely flexible. Overall, the design is modern and nice, and despite your mom's legs, the monitor's legs, spreading out far and wide, taking up a lot of desk space, I think this is one of the best looking monitors, if not the best looking gaming monitor on the market, but that's just my opinion, what do I know? What isn't my opinion, but rather fact, is how good this panel is. It's a content creating, high skill level player's wet dream. We'll get to the high skill level / gaming stuff in a bit though. Starting with the Gamut coverage, it covers 100% of the sRGB color space, which is great, 84% of the Adobe RGB color space, so you gaming photo editors will be extremely happy with this, but won't be as happy as the gaming video editors, as it covers 96% of the DCI-P3 color space. Gamut coverage is fantastic all around, and it should fit the needs of most professional photo and video editors. Not only that, but out-of-the-box color accuracy is awesome as well, giving an average delta E of 1.95, which is not only very accurate, but a common thing of NanoIPS panels is that colors are oversaturated. This is not an issue with this Alienware, which makes me think that there is some calibration going on before being shipped to the consumer. It also gets eye-searingly bright, with a 507 nit peak brightness. That's like airplane headlights bright. Sadly though, because it has an IPS panel, contrast ratios are lacking at 989:1. Calibrating the display yields superb color accuracy, giving an average delta E of 0.39, which is absolutely perfect. But it decreases the brightness and contrast ever so slightly down to 490 nits and 958:1. Then there's the color depth, which is very important, because none of the gamut coverage and color accuracy stuff will matter if this is an 8-bit panel. On the reviewer's guide and on Dell's website, it states that this monitor displays 1.07 billion colors, which is 10-bit, and that's great. But when I checked Windows, it kept saying that it was only on 8-bit mode. So I just assumed that it was an 8-bit plus FRC panel. But no, it's not. It's true 10-bit, but you can only enable 10-bit color at a maximum refresh rate of 144 Hz. This isn't a huge deal. A lot of monitors do this, but it's an annoyance nonetheless, since you always have to go from 240 Hz down to 144 Hz when you want to do some serious color work. Luckily for me, and unluckily for me, my camera only shoots in 8-bit video and doesn't record RAW, so this doesn't really affect me. But I still would like to see companies implementing 10-bit to the full refresh range, not just a limited one. A quality of life thing, if you will. Maybe there's some hardware limitation that prevents it with today's technology? I don't know. Maybe someone can let me know down in the comments. What I do know is viewing angles are amazeballs. You can look at this monitor from any angle and won't notice any angle discoloration, high contrast effect, or any issues at all. This is as good as it gets. Sadly though, I can't say the same for HDR. It's not bad, but it's not great either. It has VESA's Display HDR 600 certification, which, yes, doesn't suck ass like VESA's HDR 400 certification, which I think they need to abolish altogether. But it does little to improve on the visual experience. The main reason is the dimming zones. They're all vertical, so whenever there's anything on a dark scene, instead of enjoying what you're seeing, all you'll notice, or at least what I end up looking at, are the vertical bright zones. I would have preferred no zones because at least I would have a more uniform scene without distracting dimming zones. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that if this monitor doesn't have at least maybe 100 local dimming zones for a 27-inch display, I don't know what's a reasonable number, so I just threw one out, it's better to just have it edge lit, at least for me. So for this monitor, I would personally keep it on standard dynamic range or SDR at all times. Okay, enough talk about colors, let's talk about what you all came here to see. It's gaming performance. We'll start with the pixel response times. The AW2721D has 3 levels of overdrive: fast, super fast, and extreme, and offers a 1 millisecond gray to gray response time. But as regular viewers already know, I don't care about advertised numbers. I care about how it actually performs. So, how does it look? Starting with 240 Hz, things are somewhat average. The fast overdrive setting is what I would leave it on when set at 240 Hz, simply because the overdrive on both the super fast and extreme setting gives too much overshoot. Okay, so fast overdrive it is then. But how does it look when compared to Alienware's 360 Hz model and the BenQ Zowie XL2546K? With all of the monitors set to their best overdrive setting, both the Alienware AW2721H and the BenQ Zowie XL2546K did the best with their backlight strobing technologies enabled and when set to 240 Hz. But some of you may also be wondering, well, if they both do the best at 240 Hz with backlight strobing enabled, then why do I include the non-backlight strobing results? The reason is simple. As I mentioned in most, if not all videos, backlight strobing gives some users headaches and eye strain. And if you know you're one of those people and don't want to deal with that, then you'll still want to know which monitor performs the best without backlight strobing, in which case is the 360 Hz Alienware at all refresh ranges. One thing I was quite surprised by when going from Alienware's 360 Hz model to the 240 Hz 1440p model is that this G-Sync Ultimate monitor doesn't include NVIDIA's ULMB, or Ultra Low Motion Blur, to improve pixel response times, whereas the 360 Hz model with its G-Sync non-Ultimate version did include ULMB. Why? I'm not sure if I should blame Dell or NVIDIA, but regardless, I feel like this is a huge slap in the face to people choosing this over the Samsung Odyssey G7, where that has ELMB. Sure, it lowers the brightness by quite a bit, but it's still usable and at least has it. Rants aside, when we move to 144 Hz, things look pretty similar to 240 Hz in a sense that the AW2721D looks the worst, but not by much. But it still can't hang out with the esports big boys because of the lack of backlight strobing. So overall, even though it lacks backlight strobing, it still does very well when compared to the Zowie and the 360 Hz model when their backlight strobing is disabled. Like, I don't want to give off the impression it's bad, because it's not. This is among the best results for 240 Hz, and it has a NanoIPS panel. It's just for $1,100, I feel like it needs to include some kind of ULMB or ELMB. Next is the black equalizer. The AW2721D has only 4 levels of black equalizing: off, 1, 2, and 3. I'll keep this one simple because the black equalizer on this monitor performs pretty much the same as every other Dell or Alienware monitor I've reviewed, including the 360 Hz model. Starting with Escape from Tarkov, which is one of the most extreme tests, this is with the black equalizer set to 0, 1, 2, then 3. It does help brighten up the scene a bit when compared to 0, but when you compare it to something like the Zowie, it just gets crushed. On top of that, it doesn't include a color vibrance feature like most other Alienware or Dell monitors to increase colors when needed, like right now, meaning that when you turn on the Zowie's color vibrance, it increases that lead it already had even further. Next is Rainbow Six Siege. Here's 0, 1, 2, and 3. Just like in Tarkov, the Zowie takes the lead once again, where not only does it make the scene brighter, but also brings back color to what was once a washed out scene. Now, all this is not to say that the black equalizer on the Alienware is bad, because it's not. Sure, it's no Zowie, but at least it's no Gigabyte RSKD25F. Yes, Gigabyte, I'm going to keep making fun of you until you fix this. You know what doesn't need fixing? Input lag. As always, I don't have any actual data because there's no consumer tool to test high refresh rates, but input lag is extremely good and about as good as it gets for a 240Hz LCD display. And while I'm on a subject, if you or anyone you know can create an input lag tester that can read up to 1080p 360Hz or even 240Hz, 1440p 240Hz, and 4K 120Hz, please let me know. I really need to get one for my monitor review so I can give everyone more valuable data. Then lastly, we have the OSD. It looks just like any other Dell or Alienware I've reviewed so far, so if you know what those look like, then you'll know exactly what to expect here. You have 1 exit and 3 shortcut buttons, as well as a nipple to navigate through the OSD. Pushing the nipple in accesses the full OSD, which throws you into the game menu, which has your color preset mode, game enhance mode, which has your timer, frame rate, and display alignment, then response time, dark stabilizer or black equalizer, and variable backlight, which just like in my AW2521H review, I noticed no difference with it on or off. Then we have the brightness and contrast, can't get any more obvious than that, input source, alien effects lighting, which lets you adjust each light individually or all of them at once. You also have 20 different colors to choose from, personalize, which lets you adjust your shortcuts, and others, which has not much in it. Dell does have their display manager software, which lets you adjust everything via software. At least, I think it will. In my AW2521H review, I mentioned that the Dell Display Manager didn't support that monitor at the time of the recording, and it still doesn't. So I'm starting to have my doubts about them bringing support to these new Alienware monitors. So in conclusion, what do I think of this monitor, and is it worth $1,100? First off, let me just say I absolutely love this monitor. It appeals to a lot of markets and performs great in almost anything it touches. It's got amazing gamut coverage, so even high-level photo and video editors can use this as their primary personal display. It's got great color accuracy out of the box, so you don't need to get it calibrated. It has amazing input lag. It's got great pixel response times, even without including backlight strobing, though I still think that they should include one. It looks fantastic and has a bunch of I/O, including 4 USB ports. Viewing angles are as good as it gets. The black equalizer is good enough, but most importantly, it's a 1440p 240Hz monitor that just so happens to have a NanoIPS panel. And after using NanoIPS for some time, even before this monitor, I find regular IPS panels repulsive now. I've been spoiled. Really, the only issue I have with this monitor is that it doesn't include some form of backlight strobing. It doesn't have a color vibrance feature to increase the colors when needed. The Dell Display Manager most likely won't support this monitor, which is a big shame for me. And the vertical dimming zones for HDR is super ugly and distracting. Though, to be fair, no monitor has it all, at least not one that I've tested. But to answer the question, is it worth $1,100? Well, if you have a bunch of cash burning a hole in your pocket, I'd say yes, this is worth it. Buying a monitor like this basically means that you won't need to worry about buying another monitor for probably 10 years. And I'm not trying to be anyone's money manager or anything, but at $1,100, that's $110 a year spread over the course of 10 years for a display you'll always love to look at. And also, maybe in 10 years we'll have 1440p or even 4K 240Hz OLED or micro LED monitors become a reality without you having to look out for the next upgrade every year or so, because this just feels so future-proof. Now I know I'm gonna get this question asked a lot, so I'll answer it here. Should you go with the Samsung Odyssey G7 or this? Well, being that the Samsung is $700, $400 cheaper than the Alienware, and sometimes even $650 when it's on sale, which seems to be like most of the time, I feel like the G7 is the best option. No offense to Alienware, but I just don't see the point of spending at least $400 more on this just because it has a G-Sync module and a NanoIPS panel. I personally would go with the Alienware because the Gamut Coverage and the NanoIPS panel is amazing. But the reality is, most people don't need amazing Gamut Coverage because most people aren't color grading 10-bit RAW videos or editing photos professionally. So if you ask me which of the two monitors you should get, and which of the two I think most people end up getting anyways simply because of cost, I think most people will get the G7. Thanks for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like. If you disliked it, leave a dislike. If you want to check out any of the stuff I featured in this video, visit the links in the video description. As an Amazon associate, I earn from qualifying purchases. Follow me on my socials if you want to see some more cool stuff and upcoming reviews. And other than that, have a great day, every day. Peace.